We're nearing the conclusion of the Beis HaLevi's discourse on certainty that God Almighty is taking care of us. He has been taking care of us. He is taking care of us, and He will continue to take care of us. And we're actually up to the last chapter of the Beis HaLevi's mimer of his discourse on this certainty. So let's jump right in and pull up over here the text that we're learning today. And we see over here, the Beis HaLevi, chapter 36, Kehelis, in the book of these Ecclesiastes, chapter 10, verse 10. Let's pull it up over here. And we see, chapter 10, verse 10 says, Im Keha Har Barzel, V'hulei Fonim Kilkel, or Kilkal, V'chayalim Yigaver, Yisron Hechsher Hochma. So if the iron becomes dull and he did not sharpen its edge, there we go, did not sharpen its edge, it still strengthens armies, and wisdom has a greater advantage. And you can see over here the articulation of this, of the simple meaning of the verse by Rashi in the cream colored box over here, the beige box. And Rashi explains that even the dull sword still strengthens armies, strengthens the mighty men of the armies to be victorious in battle. And then wisdom has a greater advantages. What's the greater advantage? An advantage over Arn, that if a Torah scholar blackens his face with hunger, and you see him as a poor man among the rich, many armies are strengthened by him. And then he has a grammatical comment over here, but the Vav. Now, let's go back now that we see the verse 2, Beis HaLevi. It says, Im keha habarzel, if the iron becomes dull, v'hu lo yafanim kilkal, doesn't sharpen it, the chayalim yigaber, and the soldiers are stronger. V'yisron ha'achsher hochma, and great is the advantage of wisdom. Lahavim elitzas pasuk. In order to understand the suggestion of what the verse is offering us, and the continuation of the pasuk, the continuation of the verse. Amar ta'achitev eitzim. It's explained as follows: the chitev eitzim lafamim yaseh barzel keha. Person's chopping wood, and sometimes the iron that he's chopping with, his axe, is going to become dull. Ye'abed chidudu. It's going to lose its point, that sharp edge. And even though it's not yet damaged, the axe is not damaged at all. Nevertheless, he's not able to chop with it. And the foolish man, that according to what his eyes see, he makes judgments, he decides. He doesn't understand the cause of the inability to chop the wood. And he concludes, or he believes, that the lacking, this deficiency, that he's not able to chop the wood anymore, is because this deficiency that's leading him not to be able to chop the wood is that he's not chopping hard enough. So he continues now to chop with increased intensity. So he believes that his the failure to chop the wood is because he's not chopping hard enough. So what does he do? He chops harder. And what happens? And he now squanders, he loses his power for futility. He squanders his power for futility without any benefit, since he doesn't have any iron. His axe, it's undamaged, but it's not sharp. So therefore, it's as if he doesn't have any iron with which to cut. And therefore, he's just wasting his energy, dissipating his strength. The wise man understands that the cause is not from the chopping. It's not from the act of chopping. It's from that he's lacking iron. Meaning to say it's not sharp. And he sees that the right thing to do is to fix the iron, which means to sharpen it. And now we can understand, the Beis HaLevi says, what the verse means. This is what the verse is saying. If the iron becomes dull, and he does not, we translated it so far as he does not sharpen it. But he says like this, read it slightly differently, understand it differently. Read it the same way, obviously, but understand it to means something different. If the iron becomes dull, according to what he sees in looking at this axe, it has not become damaged. He looks at the axe, chopping away, not getting any results from the chopping, but he looks at the axe and he doesn't see any damage to the axe. And the strong ones, we said the soldiers or the strong ones, they become stronger. He adds to become stronger. He adds his power to become stronger to chop with even greater strength and force. That's how he's explaining the words. And the strong ones get stronger; they get more forceful. And there's an advantage of wisdom. The word heksher means to prepare something. That there's an advantage to prepare and fix the iron. This is what it says in the verse, that the advantage of wisdom is preparation. It's as if it wrote, instead of saying Yisron Heksher Chochma, instead of writing it in this order, that the advantage is the preparation of wisdom. It's as if it was written, the advantage of wisdom is that you're going to now prepare, you're going to fix the iron. Shahu, you should be now seeing page 64, Samach Dalet. Shahud l'taken habarzel. What's the wisdom? What does it mean to prepare it? It means to fix the iron, which means to sharpen it. So too it is in every single thing in the world. If a man's income goes down, he attributes the cause to the amount of efforts he's putting in, or the type of efforts he's putting in. So what does he do? And so he puts in more effort. And he doesn't understand that the deficiency is not in the amount of effort he's putting in, but in this, that he doesn't have iron, as by way of analogy at all. Meaning to say, his axe is not sharp. So this is a lesson we can learn in every situation. What does it mean, sharpening the axe? Well, sharpening the axe means to say, you have to say, well, what's really the problem over here? What's the failure to be able to chop through the wood is like a downstream problem. And you might think, okay, we got to let's save the situation over here. We're not getting through. We're not being able to chop the wood. Let's chop harder. And the answer is you have an upstream problem. There's a problem that precedes this, which is that your axe is not sharp. Now, if you base, he calls the foolish one the one who makes judgments based on what his eyes see. He just looks at the situation. He looks at the axe, sees a perfectly even axe. There's no chips out of it. The axe is not broken. It didn't come detached from the head. Didn't become detached from the handle of the axe. So he says nothing wrong with it. Just chop harder. That's foolish. You have to be able to realize that when you see a problem in life, that there's a preceding cause, the preceding deficiency that's leading to this. And we know that if we really start to think about it, it's really a spiritual deficiency. Meaning to say, what he's indicating over here is that person's, let's say his income's going down, so I'm going to try harder. I'm going to make more phone calls. I'm going to work harder. And he doesn't realize that there's something spiritually missing in his connection to the way he's experiencing his connection to his creator. So the answer is to sharpen the axe. What do I need to work on? And I need to take what appears to be a detour. There's a story told about guys, they're sawing away at the tree, and someone comes along and says, they're all sweaty and they're working very hard and not making any progress. And the guy comes along and says, well, you're taking too long because your axe, you haven't sharpened your saw. And they say, well, we're too busy for that. We don't have time to sharpen your saw. Because we're too driven for the result. I want the tree down. I don't have time to sharpen the saw. I want this money. I want this income. I don't have time to sharpen the axe. You can apply this to relationships also. If there's something's not flowing in a relationship, our inclination could be to try harder, but maybe the relationship is not flowing because there's something about me that needs sharpening. Sharpening as in a greater, sharper connection with God Almighty. And that's what's really interfering with the relationship. Not sharper, God forbid, that we should be sharp-tongued or have sharp things to say or hurt another person, but that I am going to be sharper in my connection and what my recognition and my awareness of God Almighty. That's what I need to look at. But we see that the natural human inclination is to try harder. When we're not getting what we want, we're not getting where we want to go, then we tend to try harder, and then we start doing it with more force. Like in the analogy the Beis HaLevi is bringing us, we start striking harder, whacking away with this tree, with this axe that's dull. And we all know what that looks like in our lives when we try to solve a problem by trying harder, or try to fix a relationship by trying harder, bringing more force to bear and more intensity of force. Actually, nothing happens. We don't get what we want. In fact, we create all kinds of disasters, devastation as a result, because we're not reflecting, we're not being wise and reflecting and saying, why is this not making progress? There's something that's not sharp over here. And to find out what that is, then that requires us to now contemplate, to be available for the divine insight, to free our mind of the intensity of trying to get that goal, to now saying, what is really the solution? What's the how do I sharpen my axe? Where's the spiritual solution in this? And we could see this at many different situations where people are trying so hard, and they try harder and harder, and the end result is they they're not getting somewhere. But when they stop trying so hard, then they actually get to what they're going for. So it could be an income. Remember, someone told me a story about a couple in Israel that they didn't have children for many years, and they were trying to have children, and it was like a tremendous amount of their occupied their minds and their hearts tremendously to have children. And the doctors in Israel that they went to said they couldn't do anything for them anymore, but they should go to Switzerland. There was a special clinic. So they went to Switzerland, and they got to the clinic in Switzerland, and the clinic in Switzerland said, okay, we're going to see you in 2 weeks. Just go have just have a nice time for 2 weeks, tour the country, relax and enjoy the Swiss Alps. So 2 weeks later, the couple comes back to this clinic and she's pregnant. So as soon as they took their intensity off this striving to get this result, that actually something else went into place. Instead of thinking it was their own efforts, they're going to try harder with greater intensity, they ended off stepping back, and they actually got the result they're looking for. And I was just reading yesterday a similar story about a couple that they didn't have children for many years, and they finally decided that they wanted to adopt a child because they very much wanted to raise a family. They adopted a child, and after they adopted a child, then they proceeded to have 2 children of their own. It's like, how does that work? Well, it's the same concept. Once they stopped trying, then they actually had 2 children. Because they once they had the adopted child, they felt they didn't feel that intensity of trying anymore, and they then had 2 children. So that's just an example of a relationship. Some people, want to see a certain result, and the intensity of the trying is actually detrimental. So what do we need to do? We need to make ourselves available to realize that there's a divine insight that's waiting for us to hear, that will only be received when we make ourselves available to hear it. And that's what the sharpening means. That's what the sharpening the axe he's referring to. The sharpening the iron is that, and that's the wisdom. Not only is it the wise thing to do, but the wisdom is the result of that stepping back. You will receive the wisdom that you need to apply in each and every situation in life. We have that access to that. Every single human being has access to that. And we will get the answer when we are making ourselves available for the answer. So that's how the Beis HaLevi concludes. And it's really an incredible conclusion to this whole journey of being certain that God Almighty is taking care of us, has taken care of us, will continue to take care of us. That we have to realize that when we're not seeing, we are certain that God Almighty is taking care of us, but we are not seeing it necessarily come through in a way that we would expect, or that we want, or that we aspire to. And we might say, well, the problem is I'm not trying hard enough. I'm not, maybe the person starts to think that there's a problem in their faith even, or there's a problem in way they don't like the way God's running the world. And the Beis HaLevi is saying, take a step back from all of that. Take a step back from all that trying too hard. That trying too hard could also include taking spiritual measures. It's not just that you working longer hours and making more phone calls, or whatever area of life you're trying to try harder. But trying too hard could be even on a spiritual level, that you're trying too hard to make this thing happen. And if you just step back from that and realize that even in your trying spiritually, and trying to do the right thing spiritually, trying to do the right prayer spiritually, even that could be still, in a certain sense, too much effort. And that what you need to do is step back and say, where is the real issue? Where is the real opportunity? On a much deeper level, as we said before, an upstream level, where is that connection that I can bring to the forefront between me and God Almighty? And then therein lies the answer. And it may not be by doing anything. It may not be by saying anything. It may actually be by, and it is by, just becoming quiet and allowing that wisdom to fill you. And God Almighty will guide you. And we're certain of that. We're certain that He has been guiding us. He is guiding us. He will always guide us. Any questions? So while you're thinking of questions, I want to just give you a thought of what we're going to do next. So in this compilation of this printing of the Beis HaLevi, it continues with a summary of 22 different foundational ideas related to the topic over here, which I think that's what we'll do starting next week. We'll go over that as long as that takes. And then at the end of the printing, it has a number of pages. Actually, it is a total of 17 pages of verses from the Torah that relate to trusting God and certainty in God Almighty is taking care of us. And it's organized according to the Aleph base, so it's in alphabetical order. So I was thinking what we could do is we could go through that together, and learning those verses together will give each one of us an opportunity to carry those with us and review them and to take them to heart. Okay. God bless you. Thank you for being here. We'll see you tonight for the Gate of Oneness, 8 o'clock. And continue learning together. God bless you all.